Picture yourself standing before an army so immense that its boundaries seem to stretch beyond your sight. The horizon lies entirely shrouded with warriors, steeds, chariots, and lances shimmering beneath the scorching Asian sun. 100,000 Persian warriors stand ready, prepared, armed, and eager for triumph. What about you? You lead a mere 35,000 weary soldiers, drained from months of struggling through a challenging endeavor with scarce resources and no way out. The mathematics is straightforward yet harsh. You're facing a significant disadvantage, nearly 3 to 1. 1. A sensible leader would choose to withdraw. A wise leader would engage in negotiation. However, Alexander the Great was an exceptional leader. He was a master strategist who would transform this apparently insurmountable challenge into one of the most remarkable triumphs in the annals of humanity. In under an hour, he would not just endure, but completely dominate the Persian army, altering the trajectory of Western civilization for all time. In what manner can you do it? Prepare to delve into the tale that awaits you. Every detail will undoubtedly leave you questioning everything. You believe you possess an understanding of strategy, courage, and leadership. Before we proceed, if you find captivating tales that uncover remarkable insights on strategy and conquering obstacles, join the channel and we'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments what time you're tuning in to watch this video. Now let us embark on this remarkable adventure. It is the year 333 before Christ. The location is a flat expanse close to the historic city of Gaugamela, what is now considered northern Iraq. At the mere age of 25, Alexander of Macedon, the Old, had already accomplished what seemed unattainable. He traversed the Hellespont, triumphed over the Persians at Granicus, and freed the Greek cities of Asia Minor. Victorious once more at Issus, advanced triumphantly into Egypt. He was declared pharaoh and established the city that would come to be known as Alexandria. However, everything that transpired was merely the prelude. The real challenge, the definitive clash, was still on the horizon. For on the opposite side of that plain stood Darius III, the King of Kings, ruler of the most magnificent empire the world had ever known, the most remarkable sight. Leading a military force that would render any European army trivial, Darius was a beginner. He possessed gained insights from his past failures. At Issus, Alexander astonished him with rapid and audacious tactics, compelling the Persian king retreats from the battlefield, consumed by disgrace. Yet this occasion would unfold in a distinct manner. Darius had devoted 2 years to carefully crafting his preparations for this moment. He personally selected the arena, an expansive open plain where his greater forces could be fully utilized, and where there were no mountains or rivers to constrain his strategies. He had the land smoothed out, clearing away stones and hindrances to guarantee that his dreaded bladed war chariots could function at peak performance. These chariots served as instruments of psychological terror and physical might. Devastation crafted to slice through adversary defenses with the ease of scissors gliding through paper. Yet Darius ventured even deeper. He summoned champions from all reaches of his expansive realm. There were Persian forces present, cavalry units, Median archers, Babylonian foot soldiers, Indian war elephants, and various tribes. From the majestic Caucasus Mountains, and fierce warriors from the vast Central Asian steppes. A coalition that spanned multiple nations, unmatched strength. Certain ancient historians assert that the Persian army was composed of 1 million soldiers, while contemporary experts concur that a more accurate estimate falls within the range of 100,000 to 150,000 troops, which continued to signify a dominant numerical advantage. Darius strategically placed his finest units, the Persian immortals, his distinguished guard, encircled his central position. He would not repeat the error of running away again. This time, he would remain and battle until either triumph or demise. Upon the return of Alexander's spies, they brought with them detailed accounts regarding the magnitude of the Persian army. With its careful orchestration of the battlefield, sent a shiver down the spines of even the most valiant Macedonian generals. Send chills down their spines. Palmenian, the seasoned commander and Alexander's trusted second-in-command, proposed a nocturnal assault. The reasoning was solid. Unexpected developments might counterbalance the figures. The shadows might sow discord among the Persian forces. It was a strategy that has proven effective time and again in the annals of military history. However, Alexander firmly declined. The response achieved legendary status. I shall not claim my triumph through deceit. It wasn't merely arrogance, though Alexander was definitely not humble. It was intentional psychology. Alexander understood that a compelling triumph in the open field and exposure in front of witnesses from both factions would obliterate not just the Persian forces, yet the profound legend of Persian invulnerability. A triumph snatched away in the shadows would be debated, reduced, challenged. However, a complete triumph in broad daylight that would be undeniable. The eve of the confrontation found the Persian army on high alert, their senses sharpened by the looming threat. In a moment of anticipation for a night attack that would never materialize, Alexander took an extraordinary step. He drifted into slumber. He slumbered so deeply that the following morning, his officers found themselves needing to rouse him from slumber. Some historians propose that this was a deliberate performance. A showcase of confidence was intended to uplift his soldiers. Some contend that Alexander possessed such unwavering confidence in his strategy that he was capable of achieving total relaxation. The impact was significant, irrespective of the underlying motivation. As the Macedonian soldiers beheld their youthful king resting serenely, oblivious to the looming presence of 100,000 adversaries, they perceived it as a celestial indication. If Alexander felt no concern, what reason did they have to worry? The break of day. On the first day of October in the year 333 BC, a remarkable event unfolded, one that only a select few have had the privilege to behold. On one side, the expansive Persian army extended for over 3 miles, an apparently infinite barrier of soldiers and steeds, and metal. The war chariots stood at the forefront, their blades shining ominously. In their wake, a surge following a surge of foot soldiers and mounted troops. In the heart of the scene, under a regal banner that could be seen from afar, stood Darius in the golden chariot, encircled by his eternal companions. Conversely, the Macedonian army appeared rather dismal when looking at it side by side. Merely 35,000 men assembled in the renowned phalanx formation with their lengthy sarissas, 20-eft spears that protruded like a thicket of lethal tips. However, Alexander chose not to deploy the military arranged in the classic formation that Darius anticipated. Rather than a direct path, he devised an angled arrangement, withdrawing to the right. The arrangement was peculiar, bordering on the provocative. It appeared that Alexander left his right flank vulnerable, beckoning Darius to strike. Furthermore, there was additional content. Alexander crafted a second A-line position behind his primary formation, serving not as immediate support, but rather as a flexible reserve capable of pivoting to confront assaults from every angle. It was a strategic breakthrough that demonstrated Alexander was getting ready not just for a single confrontation, but for various potential scenarios. Darius observed these movements with increasing fascination. The simplicity of his plan was striking. Leverage his numerical advantage to entirely envelop the Macedonian army, encircle it from every direction, and overwhelm it with an overwhelming force of numbers. The conflict chariots would disrupt the Macedonian formation, opening up gaps that his infantry and cavalry could exploit. Pierce. It was a proven approach, one that had served countless Persian commanders well over the years. Yet Darius was on the brink of realizing that Alexander operated outside the traditional boundaries of warfare. The clash commenced with Darius releasing his war chariots. More than 200 of them charged toward the Macedonian lines, their blades spinning, producing a chilling howl that blended with the shouts of the charioteers. It was a vision crafted to instill fear, to shatter the enemy's spirit long before any confrontation occurred. Common warriors might have succumbed to panic, shattered their formations, and attempted to escape. Yet the Macedonians under Alexander were anything but ordinary warriors. They were prepared meticulously for this very instant. As the chariots drew near, the Macedonian phalanx took an unexpected turn. It revealed itself. Minor spaces emerged within the lines, meticulously designed pathways that allowed the chariots to traverse without inflicting harm. At the same time, the archers and spearmen positioned at the back lines directed not towards the horses or the chariots, but rather at the charioteers, as chariot after chariot moved by unscathed, either traversing the Macedonian lines or being neutralized prior to making contact. The initial and most striking aspect of Darius's scheme had utterly collapsed. Yet Darius possessed ample resources. He ordered his troops on either side are set to move forward, with the objective of surrounding the Macedonian forces. On the left flank of the Persians, the cavalry force commenced its advance toward the Macedonian right, where Alexander took personal command of his companions, the finest of the Macedonian cavalry. On the right flank of the Persians, an even larger the cavalry force commenced its maneuver to flank the left side of the Macedonian line, under the command of Pelminion. The pincer movement was underway. If victorious, the Macedonians would find themselves encircled, and it would merely be a question of time before they were utterly obliterated. Alexander observed the clash with the keen focus of a strategist plotting his next move. Darius's plan was unfolding precisely as he had envisioned. At that moment, he finally beheld the opportunity he had long anticipated: a breach. As the Persian cavalry advanced to encircle the Macedonian flanks, an unavoidable breach emerged within the Persian formations between the advancing cavalry and the central position occupied by Darius. It was a fleeting pause, an inevitable result of endeavoring to orchestrate extensive operations amidst constrained communication channels. Many leaders would likely overlook this breach, or had they known of it, they would have likely hesitated to exploit it, wary of the possibility that it was a trap. Yet Alexander did not pause. This was the moment he had meticulously orchestrated, the moment for which he had wagered it all. With a voice that resonated across the ranks, Alexander took the reins of the cavalry, spearheading a charge straight into the breach. It was not a haphazard or frantic assault. It was a move of exacting accuracy, carried out with swiftness, and their coordination left the Persians in a state of disbelief. Mounted, Alexander's companions, on the most exquisite Macedonian steeds, meticulously trained to achieve excellence, they arranged themselves in a wedge formation, with Alexander leading the charge. This wedge formation was groundbreaking. Rather than a wide formation of cavalry that could be readily absorbed and contained, the wedge concentrated all the striking power into a single narrow point, piercing through enemy defenses with precision pierced through a barrier. The impact was catastrophic. The cavalry of Macedonia struck, cutting through the Persian lines, obliterating all that stood before them. Alexander had no intention of aiming at the ordinary Persian soldiers. His aim was clear. Darius. If he could approach the Persian king, if he could compel him to escape or seize him, and the conflict would conclude in an instant. Ancient armies were united by devotion to their leader. Should the leader stumble or escape, the army would crumble into chaos. Alexander was aware of this and invested all in this core principle of timeless combat. As Alexander surged forward against the Persian forces, the circumstances on the Macedonian left flank were growing increasingly dire. The Persian cavalry successfully encircled Parmenions' position entirely. Countless horsemen from Persia and India, they were assaulting the Macedonian positions from various angles. Some even succeeded in delving so profoundly that they arrived at the Macedonian encampment at the back, where they commenced their plundering of tents and supplies. Parmenions dispatched urgent envoys to Alexander pleading for additional support. The communication was unmistakable. The left wing was teetering on the brink of failure. If Parmenion were to be obliterated, the actions of Alexander in the center would hold no significance. The Macedonian forces would face division and destruction. This marked the pivotal point of the entire conflict. Alexander was faced with an unthinkable decision. He stood fewer than 100 meters away from Darius. He was capable, behold, the Persian king. He observed the fear reflected in the eyes of the immortals, who had formed a frantic human shield around the ruler of their realm. In just a few more minutes, he would arrive at Darius's side. However, should he persist, the destruction of Parmenion could lead to the division of the army. If he withdrew to assist Parmenion, Darius would slip away once more. The conflict may continue without a clear resolution. Inferior leaders might have hesitated at this choice. However, Alexander I had foreseen this eventuality. His second line, that reserve force he had strategically positioned, was absent. There unintentionally. Alexander did not withdraw himself. In place of that, he commanded a portion of his reserve force was dispatched to assist Parmenion as he maintained his advance toward Darius. It was a fragile equilibrium, splitting his troops at the pivotal juncture of the conflict. Yet Alexander placed his faith in his commanders, had confidence in their training, and believed in his own evaluation of the circumstances. Indeed, he was correct. As the companions of Alexander drew ever closer, slicing through the immortals with unyielding ferocity, Darius executed precisely what he had done at Issus. He escaped. The moment of Darius's flight marked a significant change. As the Persian soldiers beheld the majestic chariot of their sovereign pivoting and racing away from the fray, as they witnessed their King of Kings retreating, as they faced their destiny, the unity of the Persian army swiftly dissipated. Components that had been battling with great intensity just moments ago suddenly surrendered all desire to persist. Why put their lives on the line for a monarch who was reluctant to take a chance on his? The retreat started modestly, yet swiftly evolved into a full-scale journey. Persian soldiers discarded their weapons and fled in every direction. The cavalry that had been relentlessly pursuing Parmenion suddenly was left without a leader, drifting without purpose, and started to pull back. Alexander refrained from permit the adversary to retreat in an orderly fashion. He swiftly commanded an unyielding chase. The cavalry of Macedonia pursued. The Persians fled for miles, transforming their retreat into a scene of utter devastation. Estimates suggest that the Persians suffered losses ranging between, on that day, 40 and 90,000 men faced off, yet the losses for the Macedonians were unexpectedly minimal. Maybe a couple of thousand. The contrast was startling and showcased not just Alexander's strategic brilliance, but furthermore, the utter moral collapse of the Persian army following Darius's retreat. Yet the quest was necessary, disrupted. Alexander learned that Palmyra remained in peril, encircled and battling with all his might. Even though Darius's flight had shattered the morale of the majority of the Persian forces, a few elite contingents, especially the Indian ones, remained resolute. The cavalry pressed on, battling with unwavering intensity. Alexander had no choice but to abandon his chase of Darius and turn back to rescue the left wing of his. The decision was both frustrating and essential. When Alexander arrived with his companions, the psychological and physical dominance of the Macedonian cavalry was sufficient to at last overcome the Persian resistance. The conflict had reached its conclusion. As the sun started to set against the backdrop of Gaugamela, the enormity of what had unfolded started to reveal itself. Within a span of under an hour in a fierce clash, Alexander completely annihilated the greatest army ever gathered in history up to that moment. The Persian Empire, having held sway over the Middle East for 2 centuries, which had overcame the Greeks at Marathon and set Athens ablaze, now lay in devastation. Darius, he would persist in his escape, yet he would never muster another force. Ultimately, he would meet his end at the hands of those closest to him. Provincial officials, satraps, who sought to win Alexander's favor by delivering concerning the exiled monarch. However, upon their eventual discovery of Darius, he had already lifeless, forsaken by the roadside as if a mere outlaw, not as a sovereign of sovereigns. The triumph at Gaugamela unveiled the whole eastern expanse to Alexander. He would stride toward Babylon, destined to be welcomed as a liberator. He would seize Suzanne and Posipolis, the twin capitals of the Persian Empire, lay claim to the unimaginable treasures amassed by dynasties of Persian monarchs. He would declare himself the heir to Darius, not merely a conqueror, but the legitimate heir to the empire. He would press on, making his way east toward the mountains from Afghanistan, spanning the rivers of Central Asia to the thresholds of India. He would establish a vast empire extending from Greece to Pakistan, founding numerous cities and disseminating Greek culture throughout 3 continents, and meet an untimely end at the age of 32, leaving a legacy that would influence the world for generations to come. However, in what manner did Alexander accomplish it? How did he transform a daunting numerical disadvantage into what an emphatic triumph? The solution is found not in one element alone, but in a masterful blend of readiness, the study of the mind, strategic advancements, and individual guidance. Let us examine each one component. Initially, we must focus on preparation. Alexander refrained from improvisation at Gaugamela. Every facet of his strategy was carefully crafted. He dedicated countless days to meticulously studying the terrain, dispatching spies to meticulously chart the landscape. Precisely how Darius would arrange his troops. He meticulously prepared his forces to confront the challenges posed by the Persian conflict. Chariots, a feat accomplished by only a select few armies. A flexible command structure was established by him. That empowered his officers to make independent decisions when needed, instead of depending on centralized authority commands that might be disrupted amidst the turmoil of combat. The preparation encompassed not just military aspects, but also logistical considerations and mental. Alexander made certain that his troops were adequately nourished and well-rested, while the Persian army remained on high alert throughout the night, exhausting itself even before the battle commenced. Next, we delve into psychology. Alexander possessed a profound insight into the intricacies of warfare psychology. He understood that figures hold no value if spirit and unity are absent. By resting soundly the night prior to the conflict, he instilled a sense of assurance in his soldiers. By declining the nocturnal assault, compelled Darius to exhaust himself with anxiety. By taking the helm in the most perilous leading the charge in battle, he showcased his readiness to put his own life on the line, motivating his soldiers to follow suit. By honing in on Darius himself, he took advantage of the inherent vulnerability of ancient armies, their reliance on core guidance. With Darius's departure, the Persian forces found themselves devoid of purpose in the battle. Third, strategic creativity. Alexander chose not to engage in the confrontation that Darius anticipated. He made no effort to prevail by sheer strength or perseverance. He relied on swiftness, agility, and accuracy. The cavalry wedge formation what he utilized was groundbreaking for that era. Most leaders utilized cavalry forces in broad strokes, yet Alexander focused their strength into a singular point, enabling them to penetrate deeply. Any justification. His angled formation and secondary reserve line illustrated complex strategic reasoning, a concept light years ahead of its era. They not only strategized for victory, but also devised backup plans for potential setbacks. Fourth, individual guidance. This may very well be the most crucial element. Alexander did not lead from the rear, reminiscent of many ancient generals, such as Darius. He took the initiative and guided the way. As he commanded the advance toward the heart of the Persian forces, he stood at the forefront, the initial warrior to confront the foe. This was more than mere bravado. It was a leadership that transformed. Leaders who are open to sharing inspire soldiers to follow their lead. The identical hazards. Alexander always led by example, never asking his men to undertake any task he wouldn't tackle himself, and they adored him for it. Those individuals, they would accompany him to the farthest reaches of the earth, for they understood that he would stand by them even in the face of death. Yet, within Gala lies a profound lesson, one that goes beyond mere military strategies. Alexander triumphed due to his vision engage in combat in a distinctly unique manner compared to Darius. Darius perceived figures, strategies, and a quantitative edge. They viewed conflict as a matter of straightforward calculations. A larger number of soldiers increases the likelihood of triumph. Alexander perceived war as a complex chess match, intricately woven with elements of psychology, timing, and audacity, held equal significance to figures. He realized that victory would not be achieved at the instant of initial engagement, but in meticulous planning and instantaneous choices amidst the turmoil of battle. This essential distinction in viewpoint is what sets apart genuinely outstanding leaders from just capable leaders. Skilled leaders adhere to established guidelines, implement proven tactics, and steer clear of superfluous hazards. Outstanding leaders redefine the norms, develop innovative strategies, and take measured gambles that many would deem unwise. Alexander embraced the peril of splitting his forces at the most pivotal point of the conflict. He embraced the peril of taking the lead in a charge that could have easily led to dire consequences. Upon his passing, he embraced the peril of disregarding Palminian's plea for assistance to keep advancing toward Darius. Every one of these choices held the potential for catastrophe, yet Alexander had meticulously assessed the risks and concluded they were manageable. Additionally, there exists a cultural and educational aspect to the triumph of Alexander. He received his education from Aristotle, a towering figure among the greatest philosophers in history. This education transcended the boundaries of academics. It was truly transformative. Aristotle instructed Alexander to engage in thoughtful examination, explore issues from various perspectives, and challenge established beliefs. When he confronted the Persian army at Gaugamela, he was not merely implementing strategies from military texts. He was in the process of applying the foundational concepts of examination, rational thought, and logical reasoning. He reshaped the nature of warfare from a savage craft into an utilized science. The impact of his father, Philip II of Macedon, is undeniable, not fully appreciated either. Philip established the Macedonian army that Alexander would come to inherit. It was Philip who crafted the Macedonian phalanx with its long spears. Philip was the one who guided the companions and laid the foundation for the culture of military prowess that enabled Alexander to carry out such intricate maneuvers. Alexander built on this base, yet the very foundation was a gift from his father. This serves as a gentle reminder. Even the most brilliant military minds do not function in isolation. They depend on frameworks, customs, and advancements established by predecessors. After Gaugamela, everything changed forever. Alexander's triumph not only obliterated the Persian Empire, but also established a new paradigm for what was possible. He showed that smaller, yet more skilled and well-commanded armies had the capability to overcome significantly larger forces. He demonstrated that innovative tactics and adaptable strategies held greater significance than sheer numbers. He showed that individual leadership and bravery could motivate soldiers to accomplish what once seemed unattainable. These lessons would be examined by countless military leaders, spanning from Julius Caesar to Napoleon Bonaparte. Genghis Khan addressed Erwin Rommel. Alexander's deliberate decision to persist in his march eastward after Gaugamela, instead of solidifying his victories and heading back to Macedonia, unveils intriguing facets of his personality. He found no fulfillment in victory. He was propelled by an inner force, an unquenchable thirst for discovery, a yearning to uncover what exists beyond the horizon, to explore the boundaries of what can be achieved. This trait serves as both his most formidable asset and his ultimate downfall. The troops ultimately declined to proceed with the march, compelling him to retreat. He might meet an early demise, perhaps due to malaria, perhaps due to poisoning, or maybe just the result of sheer exhaustion after years of tireless campaigning. However, on that day at Gaugamela, none of those impending complications held any significance. What was significant was that a 25-year-old confronting against seemingly insurmountable challenges, a remarkable military triumph was secured, marking one of the most significant victories in history. He not only emerged victorious, but did so with such clarity that the result was beyond dispute. He not only triumphed over Darius, yet utterly shattered the illusion of Persian invulnerability. He not only triumphed in a battle, but also altered the trajectory of the past. The teachings of Gaugamela resonate across the ages. They instruct us that what appears to be unattainable obstacles can be surmounted through thorough preparation, creative problem-solving, and the bravery to embrace calculated risks. Leadership is not merely about issuing commands from a distance. It is about stepping forward, engaging with others, and sharing the journey. Challenges with those you guide. They impart the lesson that numbers do not dictate our fate, that a smaller yet more united and improved, a well-prepared team can triumph over a chaotic crowd. They convey that psychology holds equal significance to physics. Conquering the mind of an opponent holds equal significance to defeating their physical form. At the moment, our exploration of Alexander and Gaugamela transcends mere military history.